Your sport is my real motivation. Thank you for being part of Host Faisal journey.
I did not expect my life to change during a simple lunch break. I thought it would be just another normal day at work, another sandwich eaten in silence, another quiet walk back to my desk. But that was the day she looked at me and said words that forced me to face something I had been running from for years. My name is Robert. I am 30 years old, and I live in a small one-bedroom apartment just outside Milwaukee. My life is simple. I pay rent, cover my bills, help my parents when they need it, and try to stay out of trouble. I work as a project coordinator at a company where I have been for 4 years. It is not exciting, but it is stable. And after what I went through 3 years ago, stable felt safe. Every day used to feel the same. I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, made quick coffee, drove to work, handled emails, managed projects, fixed small problems before they became big ones, and left at 5 o'clock. Then I went home, heated up dinner, watched something on Netflix, and fell asleep. I told myself I was content. The truth was, I had stopped expecting anything more from life. 3 years ago, I went through a breakup that changed me. I had been with someone for almost 4 years. I thought we were building a future together. There was no cheating, no screaming fights. We simply grew into different people. One day I realized she no longer saw me the way she used to. I felt invisible in a relationship where I thought I mattered. After that, I promised myself I would not let anyone close enough to hurt me like that again. Then Beatrice joined our team. She came in quietly. She did not try to impress anyone. She did not talk loudly or demand attention. She listened more than she spoke. She took notes in meetings and stayed focused on her work. The first time she came to my desk, she asked if I could explain how we organized our client files. Her voice was soft and respectful, like she did not want to bother me. We spent about 40 minutes going over the system. When we finished, she thanked me 3 times. I remember thinking that not many people show that kind of appreciation anymore. A week later, I heard from a coworker that she was divorced. She never told me herself. She was not someone who shared personal details easily. I did not judge her. I just thought life is not always simple for anyone. Over time, our conversations became natural. She would come to my desk with questions. I would trust her with tasks. We worked well together. If anyone had asked me back then, I would have said we were just coworkers who got along. But even in those early weeks, there was something different about the way she listened to me. When I spoke, she paid attention like my words mattered. One rainy Tuesday, I stayed late to fix a mistake in a spreadsheet. When I finally shut down my computer, I saw her putting on her coat. She looked at me and said it had been a rough day. I agreed. She did not ask for details. She simply said, "I handled pressure better than most people." That comment stayed with me. It was not dramatic or exaggerated. She meant it. And it had been a long time since someone noticed how hard I tried. As weeks passed, we began eating lunch together without planning it. It was not romantic. We just happened to take breaks at the same time. We talked about work, about small frustrations, about normal things. Slowly, we started sharing more personal thoughts. Nothing too deep at first, just pieces of our lives. One afternoon, after most people had left, she sat near my desk and told me about her marriage. She said her ex-husband made her feel invisible. She said some days she questioned if she even existed. She did not cry. She did not blame him loudly. She just said it like a fact. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, she apologized for talking too much. I told her she was not. I told her everyone deserves to be heard. Then she asked about my breakup. I usually avoid that topic, but with her I did not feel the need to hide. I told her how it felt to build a future and then watch it slowly disappear. I told her how being unseen hurt more than any argument. She nodded and said it made sense that I protect myself. In one sentence, she understood something about me that most people never noticed. After that conversation, something shifted. We did not flirt. We did not act differently. But there was a softness between us, a quiet trust. When we sat together, it felt calm. Still, I ignored what was slowly growing between us. I told myself it was just friendship. It was easier that way. Then came that Tuesday. She asked if I wanted to get lunch outside because she needed fresh air. We walked to a small park near the office. It was early fall, a little cold but peaceful. We sat on a bench under a bare maple tree. For a few minutes, we ate without speaking. Then she looked at me in a way that felt different. Her eyes were steady but vulnerable. She took a breath and said something that made my heart stop. "Everyone sees how I feel about you except you." In that moment, I realized I could not pretend anymore. I remember the exact way the wind moved the leaves behind her when she said it. The world did not stop. Cars were still passing on the street near the park. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. But inside me, everything went still. "Everyone sees how I feel about you except you." Quote. I stared at her, trying to understand how we got there. I thought we were being careful. I thought we were staying safe. I thought I had done a good job hiding what was growing inside me. She did not look embarrassed. She did not look scared. She looked honest, calm, like she had finally decided she was tired of pretending. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. My heart was not racing like in the movies. It felt heavier than that. It felt like someone had unlocked a door I had kept closed for years. She lowered her eyes for a second and then looked back at me. "I didn't plan to say it today," she said. "But I can't keep acting like it's nothing. You matter to me. More than I expected anyone to again." Her voice was steady, but I could hear how much courage it took for her to say that. This was not someone who jumped into feelings without thinking. This was a woman who had already been hurt once. I finally found my voice. "I care about you too," I said. The words felt small, too simple for everything I was feeling. She gave a soft smile, but she gently shook her head. "I know you care," she said. "I see it, but you won't admit how deep it goes because you're scared." She was right. I had felt something for her long before that lunch. I felt it in the way my day improved when she walked into the office. I felt it when she laughed at something small I said. I felt it when she stayed late with me and made long hours feel lighter. But I kept pushing it down. I was afraid of losing myself again. Afraid of building something and watching it slowly fall apart. Afraid of feeling invisible one more time. She did not ask me what we were. She did not demand an answer. She simply told me how she felt and gave me space. We walked back to the office quietly. It was not awkward. It was heavy with thoughts. When we reached the building, she gave me a small smile and went to her desk. The rest of the day, I barely focused on work. Her sentence kept repeating in my head. "Everyone sees how I feel about you, except you." That evening, I sat in my car in the parking lot, long after most people had left. I watched coworkers drive away, laughing, talking on their phones, heading back to their lives. I realized something uncomfortable. I was not really living, I was surviving. I had built a safe routine: work, home, sleep. No risks, no deep emotions, no expectations. It protected me from pain, but it also protected me from joy. Beatrice had not rushed me. She had not tried to pull me into something dramatic. She had simply told the truth. And the truth was gentle, not chaotic. That night in my apartment, I stood in my small kitchen holding a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. I asked myself one question. What am I really afraid of? Was I afraid of her? No. Was I afraid she would hurt me on purpose? No. I was afraid that even if we built something real, life could still break it. And I did not know if I was strong enough to go through that again. But I also knew something else. If I kept choosing fear, I would never build anything meaningful. I picked up my phone and stared at her name in my messages. For a moment, I almost put it down. Then I typed, "Can we talk tomorrow after work?" She replied almost immediately, "Yes, of course." I did not sleep much that night. My mind kept going back to her face on that bench. She was not asking me to promise forever. She was not asking me to move fast. She was asking me to be honest. The next day at work felt different. Not tense, just aware. We spoke about projects, emails, meetings. Nothing about lunch. Nothing about feelings. But every time our eyes met, there was understanding. When the clock passed 6, and most of the office lights turned off, we both stayed. We met in the small break room near the back of the building. The refrigerator hummed softly. The air felt still. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I turned to her. "I've been afraid for a long time," I said. "Afraid of letting someone close. Afraid of losing myself again. Afraid that if something goes wrong, I'll break all over." She listened without interrupting. "I feel something for you," I continued. "I have for a while. You didn't imagine it. You didn't pressure me. I just wasn't ready to face it." Quote, her eyes grew softer, not dramatic, not overwhelming, just real. "You make my days lighter," I said. "You make me feel seen." And I didn't even realize how much I needed that. I paused because this part mattered. I don't want to rush into anything. I don't want to pretend we know everything already. But I want to try, slowly, honestly. She took a small step closer. "I'm not here to take anything from you," she said quietly. "I just want to build something that makes us both feel safe." And in that quiet break room, with no music, no audience, no dramatic moment, we both made a choice. Not to run, not to hide, but to try. The days after that conversation felt different, but not in a dramatic way. Nothing in our world suddenly changed. We still showed up to work at the same time. We still sat at our desks. We still answered emails and handled clients. But something inside me felt lighter. We had chosen honesty. That alone made everything feel calmer. We agreed not to rush into anything. We did not announce anything at work. We did not start acting like a couple in front of everyone. We simply allowed ourselves to stop pretending. Lunch breaks became more intentional. We still sat together, but now there was no confusion about why we preferred each other's company. There was no tension about hidden feelings. There was clarity. One Saturday morning, she texted me and asked if I wanted to grab coffee downtown. It was simple, no pressure. I said yes. We met at a small cafe near Lake Michigan. The air was cool, and the sky was clear. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, nothing dramatic, nothing designed to impress. And yet I found myself noticing everything about her. We sat by the window and talked for hours. Not about romance, not about labels. We talked about money, about how we both learned to be careful after heartbreak. We talked about boundaries. We talked about how important it was to never make the other person feel small. That conversation meant more to me than any dramatic confession ever could. A few days later, she came over to my apartment for the first time. I was nervous, not because of physical expectations, but because letting someone into your personal space feels intimate in a different way. My apartment was small and plain. A gray couch, a wooden table, a television against the wall. Nothing fancy. She looked around and smiled. "It feels peaceful here," she said. We ordered takeout and watched a movie. We did not sit too close at first. There was no rush. But as the night went on, we found ourselves naturally leaning toward each other, not because we had to, because it felt comfortable. There were no fireworks, no dramatic moment, just a quiet understanding that we both felt safe. That safety meant everything to me. At work, we remained professional. We did not flirt at our desks. We did not create gossip. After a few weeks, we decided to go to HR together and let them know we were seeing each other. We wanted to handle it the right way. The HR representative appreciated our honesty. We agreed to keep everything professional during office hours. That conversation felt mature, responsible. It showed me that what we were building was not based on impulse. As the months passed, I learned more about her strength. She was not fragile, even after what she went through. She had scars, yes, but she carried them quietly. She never used her past as an excuse to treat others badly. She learned things about me too. She saw how I overthink, how I try to stay calm even when I feel overwhelmed, how I sometimes shut down instead of speaking up. And instead of criticizing me, she accepted those parts. We talked openly when something bothered us. If I felt distant one day, she asked, gently instead of assuming. If she felt stressed, I listened without trying to fix everything. 6 months passed, and what we had did not fade. It did not become boring. It became steady. One evening, she stood in my kitchen cooking pasta while I sat at the table watching her. The light above the stove made her hair glow softly. She moved with confidence, like she belonged there. She caught me staring. "What?" she asked, smiling. I shook my head. "I used to think love had to be dramatic to be real," I said. "Now I think real love looks like this." She did not laugh. She did not make a big speech. She just smiled in that gentle way she has when she feels secure. And in that moment, I realized something simple. I did not feel alone anymore. Not because she filled an empty space inside me, but because she stood beside me while I rebuilt myself. A year after she joined the company, we decided to move into a slightly bigger apartment together. It was nothing luxurious, a cozy 2-bedroom with a small balcony. On Sunday mornings, we drank coffee outside and watched the city wake up. At work, people treated us the same. There was no drama, no whispers, just quiet respect. Everyone could see something steady between us. Sometimes I think back to that lunch in the park. The bare maple tree. The cool air. The way she looked at me when she said those words. She did not force me into love. She invited me into honesty. And that made all the difference. But even in something steady and real, life has a way of testing what you build. And I did not know then that soon we would face a moment that would prove whether our foundation was truly strong. The test came quietly, the way most real challenges do. About a year and a half into our relationship, the company announced restructuring. Budgets were being cut. Departments were merging. Positions were being reviewed. No one said the word layoffs out loud at first, but everyone felt it. The office energy changed overnight. Conversations became shorter. Meetings felt tense. People updated their resumes quietly during lunch breaks. Beatrice and I did not panic, but we both knew our department could be affected. One afternoon, she was called into a closed-door meeting with upper management. I watched her walk down the hallway, calm but serious. I tried to focus on my screen, but I could not read a single line. When she came back, she did not cry. She did not look angry. She just looked thoughtful. "They're eliminating my position," she said softly. For a second, my chest tightened, not just because of money, but because I knew how hard she had worked to rebuild her life after her divorce. This job had given her stability. It had given her confidence. I stood up from my desk and walked with her to the empty conference room so we could talk privately. "They gave me a severance package," she continued. "It's not terrible. I'll be okay. I just didn't expect it." She was handling it with strength, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. That night, sitting at our kitchen table, we went over numbers together. Rent, utilities, savings, groceries. We spoke calmly. No blame. No panic. "If it takes a few months, we'll adjust." I told her, "We'll cut back where we need to. We'll figure it out." She looked at me carefully. "You don't resent this?" she asked. The question surprised me. "Resent what?" I said, having to carry more for a while. I reached across the table and took her hand. "We're not keeping score," I said. "We're building a life. Sometimes you carry more. Sometimes I will. That's how this works." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. That moment showed me something important. Love is not tested when everything is easy. It is tested when things feel uncertain. The next few months were not glamorous. She applied for jobs daily. Some days she felt hopeful. Some days she felt discouraged. On the harder days, she would sit quietly on the balcony with her coffee, staring at the city. I did not try to fix her feelings. I just sat beside her. "You are not your job," I reminded her once. "You're strong because of who you are, not because of a title." She leaned her head on my shoulder. During that time, I noticed something else. I was not afraid anymore. Not of losing her. Not of carrying responsibility. Not of building something real. The fear that once controlled me had slowly faded, replaced by something steadier. Trust. 3 months later, she received an offer from another company. A better position, better pay, more respect. When she told me, she did not scream, she did not jump, she simply walked into the living room, held the phone in her hand and said, "They want me." Quote. I pulled her into a hug that felt deeper than excitement. It felt like relief, like confirmation that we had handled the storm together. That night, we did not celebrate with anything fancy. We ordered pizza and sat on the floor because we had not finished rearranging the furniture. We laughed about how stressful the past few months had been. And then she looked at me in the same honest way she did that day in the park. "I'm glad you didn't run from me," she said. I smiled. "I'm glad you didn't let me hide." Now, when I think about everything, it still amazes me how ordinary it all started. A lunch break, a park bench, a sentence spoken softly under a maple tree. I used to believe love had to be dramatic to be meaningful. I used to think heartbreak made me numb forever. I used to think distance was safer than vulnerability. But Beatrice never asked me for drama. She asked me for honesty, and honesty turned into trust. Trust turned into stability. Stability turned into a life we chose together. We are not perfect. We still disagree sometimes. We still have stressful days, but we talk, we listen. We never let each other feel invisible. And if I had to sum up our story in one simple truth, it would be this. I thought I was protecting myself by staying guarded. But the day she said, "Everyone sees how I feel about you except you," was the day I realized that sometimes the greatest risk is not loving at all. That ordinary lunch at work did not just change my relationship status. It changed the way I live my life.
I hope you enjoyed today's tale. Please tell me in the comments and subscribe, like and share my channel.